Ellen Hart published her first book, Hallowed Murder, in 1989. It featured Jane Lawless, a Minneapolis restaurateur, taken from Ellen's real-life experience as a professional chef. It might have been just another cozy, except Jane Lawless is a lesbian. To give you some context, in 1986, 3 years earlier, the Supreme Court had just ruled in Bowers v. Hardwick that if 2 men or 2 women had sex, it could be a crime. We could not join the military, we could not adopt children, marriage was, oh, when pigs fly, and we could be fired or kicked out of our housing just for being gay. Oh, that's still true in 32 states. Oh well, old trick. Oh, now it's back again. Ellen was writing a book that said, instead of being a criminal, we could be the ones who solve the crimes. We could be the hero, the one who brings justice. It was an act of love and courage. It had to be. The only real publication options were the small feminist presses that had recently sprung up. There was little hope of the usual dreams of writers, good reviews, sales, awards, notice, a writing career. We were spitting in the wind, and that we too existed, were human, taking the iconic roles of detective, those who seek justice. An uphill battle on so many fronts. We couldn't assume that Grandma would buy the book. As a matter of fact, we had to make sure Grandma never found out about the book. Don't let that side of the family know. Small women's presses were not going to pay enough to be able to get you fired from your job. Ellen Hart is not the name she was born with. Our books were in the gay studies section of the bookstore, not the mystery section. Same-sex books were not allowed to mingle with other books. But we got something in return, a letter, an email, a random encounter, and being told, you saved my life. I was alone, I was scared, I thought about killing myself. You saved my life. South Africa, the Philippines, Cleveland, a few blocks away, the messages came. Ellen's books gave hope and courage, a lifeline to people who often lived closeted, hidden, scared lives. Ellen overcame these obstacles. She got picked up by a large publisher, St. Martin's. She's one of the few lesbian gay authors to have sustained being published by a large press, a testament to her writing and professionalism. It's hard to write a book. It's much harder to write good book after good book, year after year. Their books are so real, I keep wanting to go to the Limehouse restaurant in Minnesota, and I realize I can't because it's fictional. On top of all of this, Ellen is nice. Midwestern nice, with just enough snark to make it bearable. When you're competing in the same award category, and she wins 3 times, she is, gosh, gee whiz, not fake humble about it. If she loses, you will not find her in the bathroom guzzling vodka saying, I can't believe that skank won. What the hell were the judges thinking? I mean, I've heard people do that. Scotch, it was scotch, not vodka, okay? She is incredibly generous with her time and talent. I was once working on a presentation about characters and asked her for tips. She sent me the entire curriculum that she had developed and did not demand I credit her. I will, I promise, the next time I use it. She has been a longtime teacher at the Loft Literary Center, mentoring a new generation of writers. She has written 24 Jane Lawless books. Most of them have been nominated for Lambda Literary Awards. And 6 have won it. She's also won the Minneapolis Book Award 3 times with multiple nominations, 3-time winner of the Golden Crown Award, and was given the Trailblazer Award in 2010. In addition, she has written 6 books in the Sophie Greenway series. My favorite is Dial M for Meatloaf. The Saints and Sinners Literary Festival in 2005 named her an LGBTQ saint. That's how I like to think of her, Saint Ellen. Now I can call her Master Ellen. The quiet courage to write the stories that weren't being told but needed to be told, book after book. Not just the writing, but she's overcome the brushstrokes with mortality, a driver who didn't look where he was going, a shattered leg, a long, slow, painful recovery. Just last year, sepsis, ending up in the hospital, another long hospital stay. Despite all this, nevertheless, she persisted. The 24th Jane Lawless book just came out this January, 2017, MWA Grandmaster Ellen Hart. Congratulations.
I'm going to sit. It's not a reflection of how long I'm going to talk. But I do have a bad knee. Wow. You should all see yourselves from up here. This is phenomenal. I want to remember this. First, to start, I want to thank Jean so much for that. We've been friends for a long time. And I want to thank my publisher, Annie Martin, Kelly Ragland, my editor, my wonderful editor who acquired me, I can't remember, 17 years ago. Elizabeth Lax, my wonderful publicist, Shaylin Travella, my phenomenal agent, Deborah Schneider. I'm quite honestly, of all the places that I ever expected to be in my life, this was not one of them. There are too many people, really, that I need to thank along the way. I've been shown such kindness. I've always wondered, you know, when you ask a writer, who do you write for? Do you write for yourself? Do you write for your fans? Who do you write for? I remember Kurt Vonnegut was asked that question once, and he talked about writing for an audience of one. And by that, I think he meant himself. For me, the audience that I've always written for and wanted to please more than anyone else was my partner. I've been with Kathy for 39 years. We got married 4 years ago? I don't remember. She has been with me, reading my books, working with me on stories, allowing me to bore her to death with chapter by chapter by chapter. And over that period of time, I think she's become one of my best editors. So I want to thank Kathy. I was in Chicago a few years ago. Well, it's probably mid-90s. I'm old. For the Lambda Literary Awards. And I was absolutely certain, I was nominated that year, and I was absolutely certain that Jean Redmond, who just introduced me, was going to win. So I convinced her to come up from New Orleans because I'd read all the books and I thought hers was the best and I thought I was going to win. And when they called my name, I was embarrassed that I had prevailed upon her. And I was also, of course I was blown away. I got up to accept the award, and this disembodied voice came over the loudspeaker and said, "Thank your mother." And the woman who said it couldn't have known that my mother had just died a few months before. So I'm sure I stumbled around. I'm not even sure if I actually did thank my mother, but that's what I want to talk about just for a minute. My mother was an iconoclast. She didn't care what people thought of her. What was important to her was what she thought of them. She was deeply religious. She was the only person who knew the truth. So, I mean, she was a religion of one. She had very, very, very strong, very conservative beliefs. And I think, like many parents, she wanted me to be a carbon copy of her. She wanted me to believe what she believed, and was always annoyed that I didn't, that didn't have the same values that she had. Let me see here. She created, how can I put this? She called me her, philosophical monster. She created in me this ability to stand up to her and say, no, I don't believe that. No, I don't agree with you. And I think it always galled her that I was strong enough to do that. But one of the lessons she taught me, and I think it's one of the most important lessons that I ever learned in my life, was that ideas are important. Ideas rule the world. We disagreed on what those ideas were, but we agreed that on that basic premise. My mother thought, I came out to my mother when Kathy and I had been together like 15 years when we came out to her, and she wanted to know how long we'd been together, and I told her, and she said, and I was so scared that she wasn't ever going to want to see me again. And when we told her, she said, oh, I know that. And I thought, well, that Kathy and I had been together for many years, and she said, I can see why you write what you write. You are marching in your books. Now, I think, on the other hand, the gay community always thought my books weren't gay enough. I've won a lot of awards, but I also know how I was viewed. I don't put sex in my books, and if you know anything about gay publishing today, that you pretty much have to have sex in your books, or you're not really considered. I think my credentials are pretty good, but the gay community didn't. So what I'm trying to say is, my mother thought I was marching in my books. The gay community thought I wasn't gay enough. So part of what I was trying to do from the very beginning was something that I think the gay community and the straight community, in pleasing none of them, I was pleasing Kathy and I was pleasing myself. I was writing the books that I wanted to read. Those are the books that were really, really important to me. I was in Chicago once for ABA, a long time ago when there was still an ABA. And a woman got up in the audience, I was on a panel, and she said, I just read your new book, and I really disagree with what you wrote. And asked her why, and she said, well, you have your main character go to a small town. And in that small town, she said, if it was me, when I went to that small town, I'd want to know where the gay bar was. That'd be the first thing I'd ask, or where the women's center was, or where the feminist bookstore was. And I just remember, and people in the audience were going, yeah, because it was kind of a gay audience. And I just remember saying, well, if I go to a small town in Wisconsin, which is where it was, the first thing I would ask is, where are the good restaurants? I had a little bit of a different approach to some of this. And I think because I tried very hard from the very first book to set my character within, not a ghetto, with only gay people, only lesbians, but in the larger world. And my main character, she is gay. It's part of who she is, but it is not the totality of who she is. Because I made some of these choices early on, I always felt like I was walking in between these two worlds. And I think, in a way, the world has caught up with me. So, yes, I do want to thank my mother. I want to thank my mother for some very important life lessons. And I think today women are crashing through the glass ceiling. Not always, not every day, not all the time, but enough. I mean, we're making progress. Maybe not fast enough. So what I want to do is tonight, very, very, very deeply from my heart, is to thank MWA for helping me crash through the lavender ceiling. This is a first, and I'm very aware of the historical nature of it. And again, I want to thank MWA for that. My love to all of you for all of the hours of enjoyment you've given me in reading all of your books. I'm an avid mystery reader. I read. If I had to give up reading or writing, I would give up writing because I love reading so much. So I just want to thank you all for giving me this incredible honor. Thank you.